Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Greg Kimball, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Chris Ellison. Tonight we are honoured to acknowledge Air Commander Peter McDermott, representing the Royal Australian Air Force Association National Council, Brigadier Andrew Harrison, Defence Attaché, British High Commission, Wing Commander Lisa Foy, on behalf of the Royal Air Force United Kingdom, Mr Bob Waite, President of the Royal Australian Air Force Association ACT Division, Mr John King, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT State Branch, and Mr Cole Coyne, President of No. 37 Squadron Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of Kingsway Christian College, Darch, from Western Australia. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. I would now like to invite Dr. Brendan Nelson, Director of the Australian War Memorial, to address you.
Today marks the 77th anniversary of the most significant day of the most significant battle of the Second World War, upon which lay the freedoms enjoyed by us in the modern world, the Battle of Britain. It was the gripping aerial campaign fought in the skies above England during the summer and autumn of 1940. In May 1940, after the evacuation of the British Army from Dunkirk, very little stood between Britain and German invasion. Adolf Hitler wanted to eliminate the English motherland as a base from which war against Germany could be fought. Evacuated British troops were exhausted after fighting in the battle for France, and much equipment had been lost or was unserviceable. To stop Hitler's plans to invade Britain, all that was left was the Royal Air Force, which maintained superiority in the skies over England. On the 10th of July 1940, battle-hardened Luftwaffe began aerial assaults with twice the aircraft and aircrew of the British. Hermann Göring believed the Messerschmitt Bf 109s would wipe the RAF from the skies in just 4 weeks. But German air commanders seriously underestimated British air defence systems, but more importantly, they underestimated British resolve. Each day between July and October 1940, British and German aircraft clashed in the skies above England. British radar stations and airfields were repeatedly hit by German Stuka bombers, Dorniers and Heinkels, while British Hurricanes and Spitfires were set upon by large sweeps of Messerschmitt fighters. On the 15th of September 1940, 77 years ago today, British coastal radar stations picked up dense formations of German bombers and fighters racing across the English Channel. Fighter commands scrambled 24 fighter squadrons to intercept them, the maximum force of 300 Hurricanes and Spitfires it could muster across southern England. Throughout the day, the skies over Britain were filled with condensation trails of hundreds of British and German aircraft locked in fierce aerial combat. It was a day of extremely heavy aerial combat and was chosen as the day on which to remember the significance of the Battle of Britain. Though the ordeal of the Blitz on Britain's cities continued into 1941, the pilots and aircrew of the Royal Air Force had forestalled a seaborne invasion of southern England. The vast majority of men and women who participated in the Battle of Britain were Britons themselves, but members from many other Allied countries made significant contributions to the Allied victory over the Luftwaffe. 35 Australians flew combat operations during the Battle of Britain. 10 Australians were killed. They were among the airmen, immortalised by British Prime Minister Winston Churchill in his powerful tribute to the men of fighter command, when he said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." 533 British airmen gave their lives in the Battle of Britain, 5 times as many Germans. Tonight's last post ceremony will tell the story of one of the 10,000 Australian airmen who fought in the skies over Europe as a part of Bomber Command, one of the 3,486 young Australians who gave their lives in the campaign.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flight Lieutenant Stuart Crosby Welch. Stuart Welch was born on the 16th of February 1917 in Hobart, Tasmania, the third child and only son of Percival and Florence Welch. Stuart's father was a prominent member of the Hobart business community, being managing director of the family company, J. Welch and Sons. After attending the prestigious Hutchins School, where he was prominent in football, cricket and rowing, Stuart Welch went to work as a clerk in the family company, where he had been earmarked to succeed his father as managing director. Welch enlisted to join the militia in March 1935, but was discharged at his own request when his application for a cadetship to the Royal Australian Air Force was successful that same year. He entered No. 1 Flying Training School at Point Cook in July 1936. A year later, he had earned a short service commission with Britain's Royal Air Force and the rank of pilot officer. Arriving in England, he began further training at Wittering before being posted to No. 151 Squadron, Royal Air Force, based at North Weald. Welch was promoted to flying officer on the 26th of March 1939, and about 6 months later flew his first wartime operation. It was the 4th of September 1939, and 151 Squadron had been ordered to patrol the fighter station at North Weald. They formed up quickly, but were ordered down after being in the air for about 15 minutes. Despite the nagging sense of anticipation, Welch and his squadron had no contact with enemy aircraft during the first few weeks of the war. In mid-May, Welch was posted to No. 238 Squadron as Flight Commander of B Flight and promoted to Acting Flight Lieutenant. Responsible for training his pilots, he quickly gained the reputation of being the father of his squadron and for taking on the most dangerous jobs for himself. By June 1940, the Allies had been defeated in Western Europe and Scandinavia, and German armed forces prepared for Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain. Before this could be carried out, however, the Luftwaffe had to destroy the Royal Air Force and achieve air supremacy. Through July and August 1940, the Luftwaffe undertook operations to destroy the Royal Air Force, targeting convoys in the English Channel and occasionally Royal Air Force airfields. On the 11th of August 1940, 238 Squadron was ordered to patrol Portland, a small island south of Weymouth in the English Channel. With Welch leading, the squadron encountered an enemy force of more than 150 aircraft. Rather than balking at the overwhelming numbers, he led his flight of Spitfires forward, continuing to fight until his plane plummeted into the water south of Swanage. Today his name is recorded on the Air Force's memorial at Runnymede. It is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among some 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Lieutenant Stuart Crosby Welch, who gave his life for us, for our freedom, and in hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.